Loretta Lynn wasn't just a country music star. She was a trailblazer, a voice for working-class women, and a living legend who reshaped the genre with her raw, honest storytelling. From her humble beginnings in Butcher Hollow, Kentucky, to becoming one of the most celebrated country artists of all time, her journey was nothing short of extraordinary. She sang about real life, poverty, love, heartbreak, and strength, making her one of the most relatable and influential artists in country music history. But behind the fame and the success, Loretta faced her own struggles, challenges that tested her resilience and shaped the woman behind the music. This is the story of Loretta Lynn, her rise to fame, the hardships she endured, and the heartbreaking final chapter of her legendary life. Loretta Lynn, born Loretta Webb in 1932 in the small Appalachian town of Butcher Hollow, Kentucky, was the second of what would become a large family of 8 children. Her father, a coal miner, worked tirelessly to provide for them, but money was always scarce. Life in Butcher Hollow was marked by constant struggle, with poverty shaping every aspect of their daily existence. The Webb family's home was a tiny, overcrowded cabin, where 10 people squeezed into a space that provided little relief from the harsh Kentucky winters. With no money to properly insulate the walls, Loretta's mother resorted to an unusual solution, pasting pages from the Sears catalog on the walls to help keep out the cold. Growing up in such tight and difficult conditions, it was no surprise that Loretta began dreaming of a way to escape. Her path to a new life came sooner than expected. As a young teenager, she met Oliver Doolittle Lynn, known simply as Do, at a community pie social. Despite warnings from those around her about his questionable character, including rumors of laziness and bootlegging moonshine, Loretta fell for him quickly. Against all advice, she married him at just 15 years old. Almost immediately, her life changed. She became pregnant, and Do announced they were moving across the country. After their wedding, the couple relocated to Washington State, where Do found work as a logger. Over the next few years, Loretta gave birth to 4 children: Betty Sue in 1948, Jack Benny in 1949, followed by Ernest Ray and Clara Marie in the early 1950s. Despite the demands of motherhood and the challenges of making ends meet, Loretta found herself drawn to music. Though she loved to sing, her deep insecurities kept her from performing in public. Do, however, saw something in her that she didn't yet recognize in herself. Convinced of her talent, he took matters into his own hands. He went to Sears and bought her a $17 guitar, then encouraged her relentlessly. He insisted that she had as much, if not more, talent than the country stars on the radio. Loretta struggled to believe him, but Do refused to let her doubt herself. Little did she know, this small push would set her on the path to becoming one of the most legendary voices in country music. With Do's encouragement, Loretta took a leap of faith and entered a televised talent show in Tacoma, Washington. Though nervous, she poured her heart into the performance, captivating the audience with her raw, emotional voice. To her surprise, she won first place. However, the grand prize was nothing more than a wristwatch. While it wasn't a life-changing reward, it was a small but crucial moment, one that put her on the path to something far greater. Among the spectators that day was a Canadian businessman named Norm Burley, who was instantly mesmerized by her talent. Unlike many who simply appreciated her voice, Burley saw real potential and believed she could be a major star. Determined to help her break into the industry, he took it upon himself to set up her first professional recording session. Burley didn't just offer encouragement, he put his money where his mouth was. He arranged for Loretta and Do to travel to Hollywood to record a demo, covering all the expenses himself. So impressed was he by what he heard that he went a step further. Rather than wait for an existing label to take notice, he founded Zero Records, solely to release Loretta's music. But getting signed was only part of the battle. The Lynns knew that waiting for a record to gain traction wasn't an option. They had to take matters into their own hands. Determined to get Loretta's music on the airwaves, Dew got to work. He mailed out copies of her debut single, I'm a Honky Tonk Girl, to radio stations nationwide, each package including a promotional photo of Loretta. He sent out a staggering 3,500 copies. But to their dismay, not a single station responded. Realizing that simply mailing records wasn't enough, they knew they needed a new plan. Instead of relying on radio executives to take notice, Loretta and Dew decided to deliver the record themselves. They packed up their car and set out on an exhausting cross-country journey, stopping at radio stations along the way to personally hand out copies of I'm a Honky Tonk Girl. Money was tight, so they slept in the car and ate sandwiches in public parks to stretch their funds. When they finally arrived in Nashville, they were met with an unexpected surprise. Their efforts had paid off. While they had been tirelessly promoting the record on the road, I'm a Honky Tonk Girl had taken on a life of its own and was already climbing the charts. I'm a Honky Tonk Girl made an impressive debut on Billboard's Hot Country Songs chart, climbing all the way to number 14. For Loretta, it was a life-changing moment. Suddenly, she wasn't just a hopeful singer trying to break into the industry. She was a rising star. With this unexpected success, doors that once seemed impossible to open were now swinging wide, and big names in country music were starting to take notice. The first major opportunity came when Loretta was invited to tour with the Wilburn Brothers, a popular country duo who had established themselves as major players in Nashville. From there, another golden opportunity followed. Country music legend Ernest Tubb personally invited her to perform on his popular radio show, Midnight Jamboree. The exposure from that appearance catapulted her even further, leading to the ultimate dream gig for any aspiring country artist, an invitation to perform at the Grand Ole Opry. The Grand Ole Opry was the heart of country music, the stage where legends were made. Performing there was more than just a career milestone. It was an introduction to the world as a legitimate country star. With her unmistakable voice and honest storytelling, Loretta won over audiences, gaining national recognition and solidifying her place in the industry. But while her career was on the rise, her personal life was filled with turbulence, and it would soon become the foundation of her most powerful songwriting. Behind the scenes, life with Dew was anything but easy. His temper was unpredictable, and their arguments could quickly turn explosive. When tensions ran high, he was known to throw objects across the room in anger. Even worse, there were times when he hit her. But Loretta wasn't the type to suffer in silence. She fought back. Years later, she would openly admit that she gave him 2 for everyone he gave her, refusing to let him control her without a fight. One of their most intense altercations nearly pushed things too far. During one particularly violent argument, Loretta struck Dew with such force that she knocked out his teeth. Expecting immediate retaliation, she braced herself for the worst. But instead of lashing out, Dew simply laughed it off. Their marriage was chaotic, filled with both passion and conflict, but it became the source of some of Loretta's most personal and heartfelt songs. In 1961, Loretta had the chance to sing I Fall to Pieces, a hit song by her musical idol Patsy Cline. At the time, Cline was recovering at home from a near-fatal car accident when she heard Loretta's rendition. So impressed by her raw talent, Cline sent her husband to track Loretta down and bring her over for a visit. From the moment they met, the two singers formed an instant connection, sparking a friendship that would become one of the most significant in Loretta's life. Their bond deepened quickly, with Cline taking Loretta under her wing both personally and professionally. She even helped Loretta decorate her home by buying her drapes, an unexpected yet thoughtful gesture. In one of the more unusual gifts she received, Klein also gave Loretta some of her old underwear, a moment that Loretta later recalled with amusement. Their friendship would leave such a lasting impact that decades later, Loretta played a role in producing Patsy and Loretta, a television movie that honored their sisterly connection. At the time, having Klein's support was invaluable, as Loretta was about to learn just how ruthless the music industry could be. Despite her growing success, Klein had a sense of foreboding about her future. She once confided in Loretta that she didn't expect to live a long life. Tragically, her premonition came true. In 1963, Klein was killed in a devastating plane crash, cutting her life short at just 30 years old. Loretta was devastated, losing both a mentor and a best friend overnight. But even in the depths of grief, she carried forward the wisdom Klein had shared with her, using it as a guide through the challenges ahead. One of those challenges came in the form of a tough business lesson. The Wilburn brothers had played a key role in helping Loretta transition from Zero Records to Decca Records, but their assistance came with a steep price. She soon realized that the publishing contract she had signed with them gave away full ownership of her songs. For the next 3 decades, she fought tirelessly to regain the rights to her own music, battling an industry that had exploited countless artists before her. Despite the legal battles, Loretta's career continued to soar. Her first single, under Decca Success, proved to be aptly named. The song spent an impressive 16 weeks on Billboard's Hot Country and Western Sides chart, marking a turning point in her rise to superstardom. One hit after another followed, solidifying her as one of country music's brightest new stars. However, as much as she had achieved, she had yet to do one thing: write a hit song of her own. After giving birth to twins, Loretta Lynn finally achieved a major milestone, writing her own hit song. Dear Uncle Sam became her first self-penned track to climb the charts, delivering a powerful message about the Vietnam War. The song told the heartbreaking story of a woman watching her husband leave for battle, a theme that resonated deeply with many families at the time. Country music had rarely tackled such serious social issues, but Loretta's fearless storytelling struck a chord with audiences, and the song became a success. That same year, Loretta experienced another life-changing event, becoming a grandmother at just 34 years old. In an unexpected twist of timing, her eldest daughter, Betty Sue, gave birth at the age of 18 in 1966. While Loretta was still raising young children of her own, she suddenly found herself stepping into the role of grandmother, adding another layer to her already full and fast-moving life. As her family continued to grow, so did her need for more space. That same year, she and Dew stumbled upon a large but run-down ranch that caught their attention. The property had plenty of potential, but there was one catch. Purchasing it meant buying the entire town of Hurricane Mills, Tennessee. Despite the challenge, they took a leap of faith and made the purchase. Overnight, Loretta became not just a homeowner, but the owner of an entire town, a responsibility that would later become a beloved part of her legacy. Even as her career skyrocketed, Loretta remained deeply connected to the everyday struggles of her fans. Before one of her concerts, she struck up a conversation with a distressed woman who feared her husband would leave her for another woman. Without hesitation, Loretta reassured her, saying, "Honey, she ain't woman enough to take your man." The phrase stuck in her mind long after the conversation ended, and soon inspiration struck. She turned those words into a song. The result was, "You Ain't Woman Enough to Take My Man," which became an instant smash hit, soaring to number 1 on the country charts. With that success, Loretta achieved a groundbreaking milestone. She became the first female country artist to write a #1 hit. It was a defining moment in her career, proving that her fearless and authentic voice had a powerful place in country music. But while she was reaching new heights professionally, her marriage was beginning to crumble under the weight of years of conflict and infidelity. Du's constant infidelity eventually pushed Loretta to her limit. Frustrated and hurt, she decided to confront one of his mistresses, writing a scathing letter to warn her to stay away from her husband. When Du found out, his reaction was cruel. He not only told Loretta to back off, but also coldly declared that he didn't love her anymore. The words cut deep, leaving her devastated. But instead of wallowing in pain, Loretta did what she did best. She turned her heartbreak into music. By 1968, she was done playing the role of the quiet, forgiving wife. She released Fist City, a fiery anthem aimed directly at any woman who dared to come between her and Du. The song's bold, no-nonsense lyrics made it clear that Loretta wasn't afraid to throw a punch, literally or figuratively, if someone crossed the line. It was a warning, loud and clear, that she wasn't going to let anyone steal her man without a fight. Fist City was both praised and feared. One critic called it the greatest song title of all time. But some radio stations weren't quite as amused. The track's aggressive tone and unapologetic message proved to be too much for certain stations, leading to it being banned in several markets. Loretta, however, remained unbothered. She had never been one to sugarcoat the truth, and if people found her honesty too intense, that was their problem. But Du's cheating wasn't his only vice. His drinking was just as damaging. Whenever Loretta finished a long tour, she often dreaded returning home, unsure of what kind of mess she would walk into. The chaos and unpredictability of Du's drunken outbursts took a toll on her, and she later admitted that there were times she preferred to stay on the road rather than face the turmoil waiting for her at home. In 1969, Loretta found herself facing a different kind of controversy, not one caused by her personal life, but by her music. That year, she released Your Squaw is on the Warpath, an album whose title reflected both the era it was released in and her own partial Cherokee heritage. While the name alone raised some eyebrows, it wasn't what ultimately caused trouble. One of the album's tracks bore an unfortunate resemblance to a Salem cigarette jingle, leading to a legal dispute. The record label was forced to recall the album, repackage it, and re-release it without the problematic song. Despite the setback, Loretta remained as fearless as ever, proving that no controversy, whether personal or professional, could slow her down. In her autobiography, Loretta shared one of the most painful moments of her marriage to Du, one that she would never forgive. In the middle of labor with one of their sons, she received devastating news. Du told her he was leaving her. For all the fights, the infidelities, and the heartbreak, this act of cruelty was something that stayed with her forever. It was a moment that encapsulated the emotional turmoil she had endured for years, yet somehow she continued to stand by him. Despite the turmoil in her personal life, the 1970s were an era of triumph for Loretta. Her popularity soared, and she became not only a country music icon, but a household name. She secured major endorsement deals, including a memorable partnership with Crisco, which further cemented her presence in American culture. By the end of the decade, her achievements were officially recognized when the Academy of Country Music honored her as Artist of the Decade, making her the first woman in history to receive the prestigious title. Through it all, her complicated love for Du remained evident. When she recorded a stirring rendition of Stand By Your Man, it was clear that despite everything, she was still devoted to him in her own way. Her life story was so captivating that it was only a matter of time before Hollywood took notice. Soon, the film Coal Miner's Daughter, based on her incredible journey, was in development, and it would go on to become an award-winning classic. By 1980, excitement over the movie was growing, and Loretta couldn't contain her enthusiasm. During a talk show appearance, she eagerly announced that Sissy Spacek had been cast to play her in the film. There was just one small problem. Spacek hadn't actually agreed to the role yet. Loretta's premature revelation put unexpected pressure on the young actress to commit. To make matters more complicated, Spacek wasn't entirely sure she wanted the part. Not only was she unfamiliar with country music, but she openly admitted she didn't even like it. Hoping to discourage the producers, she made a bold demand. If she took the role, she would insist on doing all her own singing. But instead of deterring them, this only made her an even stronger candidate for the part. Loretta, more than anyone, wanted Spacek to say yes, believing she was the perfect person to bring her story to life. Sissy Spacek ultimately turned to faith to help her decide whether to take on the role of Loretta Lynn. One day, while driving with her radio tuned to a classical station, something inexplicable happened. Coal Miner's Daughter suddenly started playing. Taking it as a sign, she finally agreed to portray Loretta. That's when her deep commitment to method acting took over, and she became determined to embody the country legend as authentically as possible. To prepare, Spacek began shadowing Loretta everywhere, on stage, backstage, and in her personal life, studying her every movement, mannerism, and speech pattern. Loretta welcomed the dedication, wanting her story to be portrayed as accurately as possible. Spacek's level of immersion was intense, but it paid off in ways neither of them could have imagined. During filming, Loretta experienced an eerie moment that left her shaken. On set one day, she nearly collapsed in shock, convinced she had seen a ghost. In reality, it was actor Levon Helm, fully transformed in hair and makeup to play her father. The resemblance was so uncanny that Loretta was overwhelmed, as if her late father had suddenly appeared before her. The chilling moment underscored just how true to life the film was becoming. Meanwhile, her husband, Dew, had his own opinions about the movie, particularly about the man chosen to play him. When he heard that Tommy Lee Jones had been cast in the role, he wanted nothing to do with the actor and refused to meet him. Not one to back down from a challenge, Jones devised a unique way to win Dew's approval. Fully embracing his role, he got his hands on some moonshine, drank heavily, and then took a Jeep on a reckless joyride through town. His wild stunt landed him in jail, where the sheriff roughhoused him before letting him go. When Dew heard what had happened, he was impressed. Jones had captured his spirit so well that the two ended up becoming friends. When Coal Miner's Daughter premiered in 1980, it was an instant success, debuting at #1 at the box office with an impressive $3.6 million opening weekend. Audiences and critics alike were captivated by the film, which went on to receive 7 Academy Award nominations and 4 Golden Globe nods. Spacek's transformation into Loretta was so extraordinary that she took home both the Oscar and the Golden Globe for Best Actress. In 1981, Loretta's sprawling ranch in Hurricane Mills caught the attention of motocross promoter Dave Coombs. Seeing its vast open land as the perfect venue, he approached her with an idea: hosting a major motocross race on the property. Loretta quickly agreed, and what began as a single event soon turned into an annual tradition. Today, the Loretta Lynn Amateur National Motocross Championship is one of the most prestigious amateur motocross events in the world, drawing riders from across the country. However, while the ranch became a hub of excitement and competition, it would also become the site of one of Loretta's greatest personal tragedies. In July 1984, heartbreak struck the Lynn family. Loretta's son, Jack Benny, attempted to cross the Duck River on horseback at the family ranch. The current proved too strong, and he tragically drowned. Even more devastating, Loretta wasn't there. She was in the hospital at the time, battling her own health issues, completely unaware of the tragedy unfolding back home. Loretta had been hospitalized for severe exhaustion when she received the devastating news of Jack Benny's death. Years of balancing a relentless touring schedule with the demands of home had taken a toll on her, leaving her physically and emotionally drained. Now, while still recovering, she was forced to endure the unimaginable grief of losing a child. By 1992, Loretta faced another painful chapter in her life. Years of heavy drinking and hard living had finally caught up with Dew. His health rapidly declined, requiring major heart surgery, and complications from diabetes eventually led doctors to consider amputating his legs. Despite her successful career and financial stability, Loretta made a life-altering decision. She stepped away from music to care for her husband full-time. After decades of a turbulent but enduring marriage, she chose to put everything aside to be by his side in his final years. 5 days before what would have been his 70th birthday, Dew passed away. Though their relationship had been filled with ups and downs, Loretta later admitted that she owed her entire career to him. From the moment he first put a guitar in her hands, he had pushed her to believe in herself, guiding her from a coal miner's daughter to a country music legend. And now, after a lifetime of standing by his side, she found herself truly alone for the first time since she was a teenager. After Dew's passing, Loretta found herself struggling to adjust to life without him. She realized that for her entire life she had always answered to someone, first her father, then her husband. Now, for the first time, she was truly on her own. Grief weighed heavily on her, and she often imagined she saw Dew around the house, a reminder of just how deeply intertwined their lives had been. To process her emotions, she did what she had always done. She turned to music. She poured her sorrow into the song, "I Can't Hear the Music," a heartfelt tribute to the man who had shaped so much of her life for better or worse. Even in her later years, Loretta wasn't done breaking new ground. In 2004, at the age of 72, she teamed up with Jack White of the White Stripes to record her 42nd studio album, Van Leer Rose. Despite the stark generational gap between them, their collaboration proved to be electric. The album was a critical and commercial success, soaring to #1, 2 on Billboard's top country albums chart, and introducing Loretta's music to a whole new audience. It was proof that her voice and storytelling remained as powerful as ever. Though she largely leaned Republican throughout her life, supporting politicians like Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, both George Bush's and Donald Trump, it was a Democrat, President Barack Obama, who presented her with one of the nation's highest honors. In 2013, she was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in recognition of her extraordinary contributions to music and culture. It was a fitting tribute to a woman who had spent her life pushing boundaries in country music and beyond. However, time eventually began catching up with her. After suffering from pneumonia and a stroke, Loretta was forced to cancel her 2018 tour. Despite her health struggles, she remained dedicated to her craft, completing her final album, Wouldn't It Be Great, even while recovering from a broken hip. On October 4th, 2022, she passed away peacefully in her sleep. She was laid to rest at her beloved ranch, right beside Dew, the man who had been her greatest love and her greatest challenge. She and Dew raised 6 children, 2 of whom, twins Peggy and Patsy, carried on the family's musical tradition. In the 1990s, they formed a country duo called the Lynns, and their talent didn't go unnoticed. They received CMA nominations in both 1998 and 1999. Patsy, named after Loretta's dear friend Patsy Cline, continued to honor her mother's legacy, and in 2024, her daughter, Loretta's granddaughter, appeared on American Idol, proving that the Lynn family's musical roots run deep. Loretta Lynn's impact on country music will never fade. She was a pioneer, a storyteller, and a fearless voice for women in a genre that often overlooked their struggles. Her songs, filled with honesty and emotion, continue to resonate with fans across generations. Though her journey came to an end in 2022, her legacy remains alive through her music, the artists she inspired, and the barriers she broke. What are your favorite Loretta Lynn songs or memories? Let us know in the comments, and if you love classic country music and untold stories of legendary artists, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out more deep dives into the lives of the icons who shaped music history.